I'm Elizabeth Appley, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the AFL-CIO. I represent them as General Counsel at Legislative Council at the General Assembly. The AFL-CIO is going to continue to work for our top priorities. And our top priorities in 2012 remain job creation, the creation of good jobs that pay a fair wage and provide good benefits. We're going to work to protect the unemployment insurance safety net for workers who lost their jobs through no fault of their own. And we are going to work to eliminate bad bills that ban project labor agreements that provide a quality job in construction, like the one that Georgia Power sought when it hired and entered into a project labor agreement in building Plant Vogel. We're going to continue to stand up for the rights of the people in this state to organize, to bargain collectively, to protest, standing arm in arm with civil rights groups and with groups who protest landfills being built in their neighborhood, and with groups that stand up for the working men and women of this state and oppose bad legislation like SB 469. But we're not going to be sent-off message. Our message here today is our primary one, and that is we stand for Buy American legislation. We support a ban on offshoring that takes Georgia taxpayer dollars and sends them overseas when Georgians need jobs at home. And we stand vigorously against SB 447. It's unfair. It's unwise, and it fails to do what it purports to do. It does not return Georgia to solvency and protect the integrity of a program intended to help people have a lifeline, a small lifeline, until they receive that next job, until they find that next job. 500,000 Georgians are unemployed today. Only 1 out of 5 of those unemployed receive unemployment insurance, and all they receive on average is a check that replaces about 33% of their wages for only 3 months. It took, on average, Georgians 41.3 weeks to find a job in 2011. Our national average, as Senator O'Rourke pointed out, has exceeded the national rate for 7 years. We are on the wrong track. SB 447 has a devastating effect on Georgia's families. It would cut the maximum weeks that we can receive in unemployment insurance in Georgia from 26, which has been in place for over 50 years, to down to 12 weeks, a sliding scale from 12 to 20 weeks. But ultimately, it would cut benefits down to 12 weeks in Georgia, depending on where the unemployment level stood. This would be the lowest in the country. Georgia would have distinguished itself by cutting benefits to the lowest maximum number of weeks of any state in the country. 44 states still provide 26 weeks or more as their maximum. The effect on cutting the number of weeks would hurt, in the first year alone, 190,000 families who lost their jobs through no fault of their own. 80,000 families would lose $1,560. And I want you to keep that number in mind, because when we get to the other side of the equation, you're going to hear talk of pennies of increases in taxes on employers. The second thing the bill would do to working families is impose a waiting week. Now, keep in mind, we all read that Georgia is 50th in the country in terms of the financial security of our families. They have no savings. We have a higher rate of foreclosure. We have a higher rate of bank failure, and all the other factors that go into whether or not families in this state are financially secure. We're at rock bottom. We're also at rock bottom in terms of job creation, which is the key to securing financial security. And so what have they come up with as a proposal? Well, it now takes 2 to 3 weeks from the time you become unemployed and file a claim for unemployment insurance till you get that first check. They say, well, that's not quite long enough. We're going to impose a waiting week. And what that waiting week means is that everyone is going to suffer a delay in receiving their benefits, and half of the people receiving unemployment insurance today will lose a week of benefits. Keep in mind that Georgia already provides the lowest average duration of benefits in practice in any state in the country. Not because we put people back to work sooner. Obviously, after 7 years of an unemployment rate higher than the national average, we're not doing that. More than half of the people receiving benefits are exhausting, have not found a job before they go back to work. But Georgia has a little kicker on their formula, and it's more stringent and more punitive than any other state's formula, and it says you cannot receive more in benefits than 1/4 of the amount you earned in the prior year. And so Georgia ends up with a duration lower than any other state in the country. SB 447 would make that worse. Keep in mind that when you cut unemployment benefits, you are taking away dollars from your local economies and the ones that are hardest hit by unemployment, by high unemployment. Because when a person receives an unemployment check, that money is being spent. It's going right back into the economy, paying rent, paying for groceries, putting gas in the car so that those families can look for work and return to employment. So SB 447 is bad for business. It takes dollars out of the economy that have a 2-to-1, a doubling multiplier effect for every dollar spent on unemployment. We know there's a $2 impact for growth in the economy. Now, what SB 447 does is propose a small increase in the taxable wage base for Georgia. That's a small step in the right direction because the taxable wage base of $8,500, the amount that employers are taxed on for unemployment insurance, has remained stagnant for 22 years. 22 years. And where they're finally proposing a very small increase, a very small increase. That small increase would generate $105 million next year. But it also proposes to make permanent a suppression of the tax surcharge that Senator Orrock referred to, following 4 years of a tax holiday that cost the state unemployment insurance system $1.3 billion. The law provided an automatic trigger because the trust fund balance was too low. A surcharge of 100% was to have gone into effect. Every year since then, that surcharge has been suppressed. It has not been allowed to go into effect. Slowly, in the last year or so, a small surcharge has been imposed. That surcharge is now at 50%. And this legislation proposes to suppress what should have been 100% surcharge in the past from ever going into effect. They would cap the surcharge at 50%. So increasing the surcharge, as SB 447 proposes, to 50% would generate no additional revenue for the state because that surcharge is already in place at 50%, and it does the dastardly deed of proposing to permanently cut those taxes in Georgia. You know, Georgia is already 48th in the country in the average tax rate for unemployment on the tax on the wages in this state. 48th in the country, and now we're proposing to go lower. You know, there's a better path forward to restore solvency. We do need to repay this $736 million that was borrowed because we ran out of money, and we ran out of money because of the $3 billion in tax holidays and tax cuts given to business since 2000. But SB 447 is the wrong option. What we need is to protect the unemployment benefits that are already ungenerous, that are already low relative to other states. We need to update our system to make it reasonable and make it fair and make it predictable. We need to avoid the risk of borrowing, and we need to change the system so we're not relying on a proposal to raise unemployment taxes when times are bad. And so we suggest by broadening the tax base, raise the taxable wage base, not just to $9,500, but significantly higher in order to approximate the level that it served in 1990 as a portion of taxable wages, as a portion of total wages, I should say. You'd have to raise it to over 16,000. So you need to be looking at 13,500 as a beginning point for increasing the taxable wage base after 22 years of stagnation. Keep in mind that North Carolina's taxable wage base is $19,700 now. Mississippi's is $14,000. South Carolina's today is $12,000 and will increase to $14,000 in 2015 and beyond that, according to legislation that they've already passed. And West Virginia is $12,000. So Georgia at $8,500 is scraping the bottom of the barrel. We also have a tax system where 40% of employers are basically paying nothing into the system. They're paying $2 and change. Under SB 447, they'd pay another 70 cents or so, and that's per employee per year. So you're talking about cents on the dollar for 40% of Georgia employers and $1,560 a year for more than 80,000 Georgia families. So consider the fact that the burden in SB 447 is 65% on unemployed families and 45% on employers. And I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.